So good morning. Wow. What a last 24 hours. And I want to address that this morning a little bit. In fact, it was interesting because I sat there watching what was going on and I kind of went "Phew," with my talk. And then I realized, no, I'm talking about the heart this morning. And to me, that is the most important talk that I will do this morning is for all of you because we need to focus on that heart part of us, that composition of who we are and what we are in the world. And so last night, of course, we understand that there was some interesting activity in the political realm where we had a candidate that was to be assumed assassinated, which did not happen. So what we look at is we say, wow, we haven't seen that, most of us in this room haven't seen that since Bobby Kennedy. And this person, this candidate, was lucky that it just nicked their ear. And you kind of say, wow, how is that possible? And why do these things happen? Well, right now, we all, as I'm sure we are aware, there's a lot of unrest. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of, I could make a laundry list of what's going on. But in the science of mind, and what we hold dearly is peace. What we hold dearly is our hearts. What we come to know is that, yes, there is disruption in the world, but as metaphysicians, we can also know a different shift in the world. We can know peace, we can know love, and we can put it out there. And what we do in this situation is we bless and know the highest good for everyone that was involved yesterday. As tragic as it was, everything that was going on, God was right there in the center. And you ask me, well, Rev, how is possible is God at the center of whatever happened because God wouldn't allow that to happen? Really? Sometimes things happen because it needs to create a new doorway for something else to come in. Maybe a tragedy comes in to shift all of us into a consciousness of love. We see something like that happen and we go, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we need to stand and whatever is being told to us, that maybe what happens is we shift. We shift our minds and our hearts to love and we say, you know what? What is ever going on out there is not serving me or supporting me as an individual. So what does it look like for me to know love? To know that even though I don't agree with certain parties' policies, that they are still an entity of love. They are still people. And they deserve love. And so if more of us thought about love instead of constantly, hitting up against something and giving into it, the world will be a much better place. It'll be a much better experience for all of us. So when you feel like there's something that is really agitating you, I ask you to go to prayer. I ask you to go to love. And if more of us go to love and turn this around, there will be a major shift. And as I said, sometimes events like this happen because we are to shift our consciousness. It's almost like something explodes in front of us and says, y'all need to change your ways. We don't ever want people to get hurt or killed. But we require of ourselves to be loving. And that's what I'm inviting you to be, is more loving and compassionate. And I don't care, well, I do care, but whatever you're going on politically, step away from it and know that whatever's going on right now is love. We have to know love is at the center of everything. Everything. And so this morning I'm going to continue my talk. Actually, it's a series of talks that I'm doing on The Wizard of Us by Jean Houston. It's a wonderful little book, and it contains kind of a metaphysical meaning about the Wizard of Oz. And I thought that would be a kind of a fun summer series to do, since we're all on this spiritual journey together. And one of the things we're doing this month, which I love, is we're exploring all the characters. So we have the Scarecrow, which was last week. He was the mind. He was, how we think and how all that works. And then we have, of course, the beloved Tin Man who's looking for a heart. Then we have, of course, our wonderful lion who's looking for courage. And then, of course, we have Dorothy and Toto too, right? So all of those characters are basically us on a spiritual journey. So I feel that this is kind of a fun series to explore. And now you won't be able to look at the Wizard of Oz ever again the same way, because you all have a different perspective of what really Frank Baum was maybe trying to tell us. So here we are last week with the Scarecrow, and he was the mind. He gave us a picture of how our mind works and how we tend to rest in limitation, and how we can actually tell ourselves, no, we don't have to be limited. We don't have to be, any of that. We can exist with, as I say, possibilities, or possibilitarians, as I like to call ourselves. So this week we have our buddy, the Tin Man. I love the Tin Man. So he's the guy that's looking for a heart. And so how we come across Mr. Tin Man is let's see, let me back up a little bit. So Dorothy and the Scarecrow are skipping down the yellow brick road, and they're both hungry. And Dorothy says, "Oh, apples." So she, of course, goes and picks an apple. Well, she gets her hand slapped, because, of course, everything is real in Oz. And she's like, "Ow!" And Scarecrow picks up on it immediately and goes, "Oh, Dorothy, you don't want any of those apples. They're probably rotten." So what happens is he manipulates the trees and just starts throwing the apples. So they start gathering them so they can eat them. That was an easy way. They didn't have to pick. They were given. So as Dorothy is finding apples and putting them in her basket, she runs across a foot. It's a tin foot. And she starts following it up. And there's a Tin Man, rusted into place. And she bangs on him, and it bangs on his chest, and of course it echoes back. And then all of a sudden you hear this, "Oil can, oil can." And she's like, "What?" And the Scarecrow's, "Oil can." So they find the oil can, which is over here, and then they start pumping him full of oil, and then he starts loosening up. And then, of course, he sings his little song, and eventually what happens is the three of them start down their merry way, because, of course, the Tin Man wants a heart. So the Scarecrow wants a mind, and the Tin Man wants a heart. And they're decided, okay, well, this is where they're going. And, of course, Dorothy wants a way home. So they're all skipping down the road towards the Emerald City to be with the Wizard of Oz, because, of course, he is going to grant all their wishes, everything that they ever needed. So in the metaphysical world, or in the science of mind, we look at this journey. It's a journey of the spiritual heart. That's what the Tin Man represents. What we learn is we require to connect with it. And that's the journey of the Tin Man, is he's learning to connect with his heart. He's learning that the spiritual heart really has no physical form, but it has a form that you cannot see, but you can hear. It's our connection with the divine, and like the inner sun that shines forth divine light, it shines it in all areas of our life. The spiritual heart is always in tune. It's always ready to light our path to enlightenment. And most of you are probably saying, well, okay, I have a heart, But what's the difference between a heart and a spiritual heart? It's how you feel. It's what you allow to let go of. The spiritual heart is actually a doorway to the most intimate relationship between who we really are at the deepest core level, and of our being, and of our source, and of our creator. And it's probably the most challenging journey we take. And what I want to share with you is many, many years ago, in a galaxy far, far, far away, I was in practitioner training. And I went through my first year, and it was an interesting year because you learn about yourself, and you learn about your belief systems, and you learn all that wonderful gooey mess, and it can be really gooey. And you learn things that maybe don't serve you anymore. And so what happened is, as I was going into my second year, my reverend held me back. And he said, I don't see your heart. What? What do you mean you don't see my heart? I have heart. It's right here. He wasn't talking about a physical heart. He was talking about my spiritual heart. And so I had to work on my connection with my spiritual heart for a whole summer before we regrouped again in the fall. There were a lot of things that I had to do, a lot of classes that I took to learn how to be in touch with that special part of me, that special connection, and most of all, the love and compassion. And so what happened is I learned that I had so many stories that that's what was keeping me from my spiritual heart. I had to keep them all. Because if I let go, I felt I would probably dissolve. I would probably die. Because those stories were things that helped me be who I was. And actually they weren't. They were a deterrent of who I wanted to be. And so when I finally got it, that I needed to let go of all that stuff, then my heart was open. We say in the science of mind that you're cracked open. And it's kind of like the egg. You're just cracked open, and everything just like bleh, comes out. And you let go, and then you're free of all that you had, which was a limitation. So that's our way to our spiritual heart, is letting go. Letting go of all that is behind you, letting go of your stories that you are married to. They don't serve you. They don't allow you to be who you want to be. They're a block. The one thing I learned, though, is that emotions, they serve us. What happens is we learn from those emotions and we say, okay, this is what I experienced. What is mine to know? And so what happens is we put that in our spiritual toolbox instead of our backpack of life. It moves from the back forward. So what happens is we now have a tool of a relation of how we are and what we have come to be. You know, most of us have spent, well, I'm pretty sure everybody here in this room have spent the most time educating our minds. And I'm not saying academics. What I'm saying is that what we believe. And that probably goes to how we were raised, what our parents thought and how they thought and what they did. And then eventually when we got out into the world, you know, the media and everything else started to give us more information. And so we started saying, okay, well, this is how I believe, because we just accepted it. It's kind of one of those, what we should know. Actually, no. What we do is we look at that should know and we put it up against our moral code, and that's when all the crazy starts. Because that's where we have the conflict. That's where we don't know which path to go down. Like I talked about last week, and I'm going to continue, is we're talking about this month, the fork in the road. Which path do we follow? We follow the path of the heart. When we are spirit-centered, we are love-centered. And when we operate from love instead of fear, the world is a calmer place. It doesn't make sense what is happening around us, and it doesn't make it disappear. But what allows us to do is to come from our heart and compassion and say, okay, this is what I know to be true, that God is right there at the center of everything. And no matter how much chaos and how much crazy that is being created, I know that love is right there. So the Spirit works through our lives, and I'm just going to call it Spirit because I know that there are some that have a difficulty with the word God. I love the word God. I love the word Yahweh. So whatever you want to use for that. The heart is what I know as to be so important because, as I said, it is a spiritual tool. Think about how many phrases we use, like we're going to follow our heart, or listen to your heart, or I knew in my heart, or speak from your heart, which is what I try to do every Sunday. Despite this inner knowing, the importance of the heart, most people will emphasize the mind. And that's what happened to me in my spiritual journey, in my beginnings, is I was so caught up in my mind that I forgot about my heart. Because everything was reason, everything had to be this way, everything was up here. Instead, I forgot to make the journey down here. To really listen, to really know. You know, some of us, we think from the brain because it seems that it makes more sense. That actually our intuitive self is in the heart. Our highest good is our ally when it comes to the mind. We think our highest good, and so therefore we can be our highest good. Now going back, I want to explain a little bit more about the non-physical heart. It is real. Now we can say that when we look into an MRI or an X-ray, we can see the heart, we can see the mind. But yet, the spiritual heart cannot be seen, it can only be felt. We have energy channels. Now think about this. I don't know how many of you are familiar with acupuncture, but there are meridians, there's chakras, there's different pinpoints that we use for energy. We can't see it, but yet we know everything flows, everything is. And we trust that. I ask you to trust that part of your heart, that energy. When we learn to experience our spiritual heart, it can become real and feel even more valid than our mind. Imagine that. That our heart can be more valuable than our mind. The creator within us is the unconditional love. And many of us will say, well, I'm not worthy. Oh, yes, you are. Very much so. You are so worthy of love. So don't tell me or don't tell the universe that you are not worthy of love, because you are. You're here, aren't you? What we understand is that unconditional love of spirit exists for every being, regardless of their imperfections. And I love this quote from Brene Brown. She said, understanding the difference between healthy striving and perfectionism is critical to laying down the shield and picking up your life. Laying down your shield and picking up your life. We are part of a unity, and our spiritual heart connection to spirit is how we can experience our deepest gratitude and our deepest joy and fulfillment. A new world with greater clarity, joy, and wisdom awaits us when we get there. Problems arise when we get too much in our head. I know that as a woman, I tend to overanalyze things to death. That there could be an issue and I'll just analyze it and analyze it and analyze it until it's absolutely just shredded. Why do I do that? When all I have to do is just say, you know, God, you got this. I trust you. I trust you with my heart. I trust you with my mind. And I know that whatever the highest good is, I will receive that. We can experience all that is and all that will be in joy and love. So how do we strengthen our heart? Well, it's part of our spiritual growth. And what is spiritual growth? Well, you're all here today. That's part of the learning, or part of the invitation, is being in a group or a spiritual practice that serves you. And so you can be a seeker. I know that many of us have come from different faith traditions. And we say this or something better. Even though we have that faith tradition, we say, you know what, I loved my faith tradition, but it no longer gets me. There's something beyond that I know that exists. Something my heart is telling me that this or something better. And how do I do that? How do I accomplish moving forward and still not feel guilty about leaving whatever I've had behind? Well, think about it this way. That's a spiritual tool. It's always in your heart. And maybe you've had a good time or a bad time with it. But what we know is we have learned from that experience in that spiritual venue. That venue has opened our minds and our hearts to what you are now experiencing. The science of mind, unity, divine science, whatever that is. What it's telling you is that there's no limitation. There's no really any rules. It's allowing you to have love in, to bring love in. So I'd like to invite you to love, to a spiritual exercise this morning. And so it's really very easy. I'd like you just to, if you feel you can, don't have to. I'd like you all to close your eyes and take whatever hand is comfortable for you and place it in the middle of your chest where your heart is. And then just breathe. Allow yourself to feel that part of you. To feel the beating of your heart. And now take 1 or 2 fingers, or even 3, and just place it right there in the middle on your sternum, where your heart is. Your heart is underneath that. And just breathe. Focus on the pulse. Just focus. And allow yourself to breathe, and now smile. Allow yourself to smile. Yes. See how it shifts. Feel how it shifts. When you go from just relaxing to smiling. Feel the energy shift in your heart. This is an exercise in how to strengthen your heart. And when you want, just relax and let go again. As our spiritual heart continues to open, we cease becoming codependent on others. Because what happens is we can go right there. When something bothers us, we can go right here. We can put our fingers right on it, and we can breathe. We can let go. It is the start of that sacred relationship that is always with us. Ernest Holmes said, love is within us. It cannot be destroyed. It can be ignored. To the extent that we abandon love, we will feel it has abandoned us. Denying love is our only problem, and embracing it is the only answer. Through the power of love, we can let go of past history and begin again. Love heals, forgives, and makes whole. Let me read that again. Love heals, forgives, and makes whole. When things appear to be falling apart, they're actually falling together. And that's what I understand and accept for each and every one of us this morning, is that each of us has a whole heart. Each of us has an unconditional heart of love. And we listen. And we know perfect joy and perfect love. And so I ask that we turn within for just a moment. Breathing in that special love, that special unconditional love that I know is the Creator, is God, is love, as us, through us. It is in this passion that we feel for humankind that we know that things are getting better and better. That we know that when we see tragedy, that God is right there with them, with us as well. That we know that there are shifts taking place in the universe, that we have no idea what is going on or what is taking place. But what we do know is there is love. Love is shifting everything. And so we meet it. We meet that love. We bring that love, and we say yes. We say yes to harmony. We say yes to unity. We say yes to humanity being as one mind of love, unconditional love. There is no room for hate. There is no room for separation. There is only unity. And so with this and such a grateful heart, I just release it all into God's holy and perfect world and law, knowing that all is well, all is good, and all is centered. And just being so grateful that we share this time together, knowing the strength and passion of our hearts. Thank you, God, for all that is and all that will be. As together we say, and so it is.